We're at Kirkwood, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Cedar Hall. I'm going to go see Ben Lange and Rod Blum debate.
Travel the distance, tens of thousands of windshield miles in the Constitution van over the last 6 months. The thing that comes across loud and clear to me, and I think we saw it in Indiana as well, Coach Luger, is people are sick and tired of politics as usual. They're sick and tired of career politicians. And who's going to beat Bruce Braley? Bruce Braley's a 57-year-old career politician, lawyer. Okay? I think 60% of Congress are lawyers. I'm a job creator. I started a business. I have created over 400 jobs in the last 20 years in Dubuque. I've met a payroll every week for 21 straight years. I've balanced a budget every month for 21 straight years. We had more people in Washington, D.C. that had to risk their own money, had to deal with meeting a payroll. We'd be far better off. So who can stand up to Bruce Braley? I think we need to have a contrast there. Is it a 32-year-old lawyer who wants to be a career politician against a 57-year-old lawyer who is a career politician? Or is it a 57-year-old job creator who's taken risks, who's had to actually operate a business, who's taken rid of the regulations, under the taxation of this federal government? I haven't read about creating jobs in a book. Okay, I've actually experienced it. 57-year-old job creator against a 57-year-old trial lawyer. That's the winning formula.
Well, Mr. Blum, I've been pretty kind over the past few months, talking with folks in the district out there, and I know you like to draw a contrast about my age or about my youth because I care about it. And I know you've stood up and told folks that those in their 20s and 30s shouldn't run for Congress. Somehow we should just sit by and watch 50s and 60s and 70-year-olds mortgage the future of our next generation. And I tell you what, it's not about coveting the next generation. We know you're on record of 1996 saying, I think I'll be an excellent politician, he says at the Dubuque Telegraph-Herald. I think I'll run for Congress someday. And here's the real kicker. I think I'll grab for the brass ring when the opportunity presents itself. So let's just talk about the issues. Let's talk about the principles. Not make up fake contracts. Let's talk about what matters to all these voters out here.
All right, you're out of time. Thank you. All right, now we move to you, Mr. Blum, for the second question, which is a general topic, but one that just about everyone in the country, if not the world, is interested in. And that would be jobs and the economy. Here's the specific question. Jobs and the economy have continued to top polls as the #1 issue of concern to voters here in the 1st District and throughout the country. As a congressman from Iowa, what will you do to encourage job creation and get the economy off the life support?
Yes, I agree. Jobs and the economy probably is the #1 issue as I travel around the 1st District of Iowa. I'm old enough to remember the late 70s when we had a president named Jimmy Carter. We had lines at the gasoline stations. We had 18% interest. People in America lost faith in fellow Americans. We lost faith in American exceptionalism. And I think Jimmy Carter himself described it as economic malaise. Enter Ronald Reagan in 1980. And what did he do? He cut taxes on businesses. He cut regulations on businesses. He implemented a strong dollar policy. And what happened? We had some of the greatest growth rates that we've had in the history of this country coming out of a recession. So the template's there. We know what we need to do. We do what Ronald Reagan did. We don't need to go to a textbook to try to figure out what the answer is. Okay, we need to reduce taxes on business. We're the highest taxed businesses in the world. Japan has lowered the rate. Highest taxes in the United States, in the world, on businesses. Secondly, we need to reduce regulations. $1.75 trillion a year is what regulations cost American business. And who pays all those? You do. Thirdly, we need to reduce uncertainty. It's the worst thing for a businessman to be uncertain of what the future is. We can do that by repealing Obamacare and by making permanent Bush tax cuts. We also need to rebalance the budget, drill for American oil, and exploit American resources here. And also we need tort reform. We need to get the lawyers and the out-of-control nuisance lawsuits in control.
Mr. Lange. Well, I've traveled the district over and over again. And when you go out there to these small towns in rural northeast Iowa, you'll see there's usually a small manufacturing hub. There's a small business owner that's put his capital on the line and risked his hard-earned capital to create jobs and opportunities for folks. Politicians like to talk about corporate tax relief, C corporations, small business owners in eastern Iowa, you'll see that many of these small business owners aren't corporate taxes. They're not being taxed at the corporate rate. They're not C corporations. They're LLCs, they're S corps, they're pass-through tax entities, which that means they get taxed at their individual income tax rate. So if you want to talk about creating jobs and opportunities here in rural northeastern Iowa, go talk to the small manufacturing plant or the small plastics facility in Monticello or the small factory up in Dyersville or up in Elkader, and they will tell you it's individual tax rates that matter. So we have to lower individual tax rates. I'm also a believer we do have to lower corporate tax rates. As was noted, we need to make America the most competitive economic environment in the world. And why is that? Because of all the decisions that all of us make. We invest our capital where it gets its best rate of return. Same that you do with your savings account. You invest where it gets its best rate of return. So we need to make America the most competitive economic environment in the world. We need to make Iowa the most competitive economic state in the world. And we do that through a tax policy. But we also do that through a regulatory policy. We also do that through a health care policy. We do that so that small business owners can go out and do what they do best. Let me follow back up, though, with the regulatory policy. Small business owner over in Benton County says to me, Ben, I got a citation for having a cobweb in my porta potty out in the middle of the quarry. And he says to me, Ben, that's regulation. That is regulation at its worst. And here he has to pay somebody to monitor his outhouse in the middle of the quarry. Folks, we need common sense in Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Lange. Mr. Blum, 30 seconds.
Yes, we do need something in Washington, D.C. that hasn't been there, and that is more job creators, more business people, more people that have actually had to live under the rules and regulations of this government. But something I didn't get to mention in my last answer is, another thing we need to do is get the Federal Reserve under control. The weak dollar policy is making everything we import a lot more expensive, including the price of oil and gasoline, which hurts businesses.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Lange, this question begins again with you. This is again very popular, and that has to do with health care. And again, here's the specific question. Bruce Braley voted for the Health Care Reform Act, often referred to as Obamacare. Republicans in Congress support repealing and replacing Obamacare. Do you support repeal? And if so, what type of health care reform would you like to see replace the existing health care reform law?
Excellent question. Again, traveling the district, I talk with small business owners every day. But to answer your question directly, I do support repealing Obamacare. But Republicans lose, conservatives lose if they stop there, if they stop with just repealing Obamacare. And here's why. In my small business, we have 5 employees, and we could no longer afford a standard health insurance plan. We had to transition to a high-deductible HSA. And why is that? Because of the increased cost in premiums every single year. It was unsustainable. So yes, let's repeal Obamacare, but as conservatives, as Republicans, let's not stop there. Let's actually address the problem. Let's put forward patient-centered health care reform. Because what we have now, as you mentioned, Bruce Braley supported Obamacare. Huge advocate for it. Not only that, he doubled down. He voted against the unconstitutional mandate. He had an opportunity to repeal it. He had an opportunity to repeal the Independent Payment Advisory Board. For those that don't know, an Independent Payment Advisory Board is going to determine our cost, quantity, and quality of our health care. That is a top-down system. We need to power in the individual. How do we do that? We create transparency in cost. Where do you go to the doctor's office? And most of the time, 90% of the time, you don't know the cost in advance. We need transparency so that the patient knows the cost as well as the doctor. Not only that, we need selection. We need to be able to find the best possible care for individuals out there. And if there is a company in Utah that provides it, allow us to go purchase it. And finally, we do need tort reform.
Okay, thank you. Once again, 2 full minutes.
Regarding health care, I think most everyone I speak to agrees the United States probably has the finest health care system in the entire world as far as the quality of care. However, the costs are increasing far greater than inflation and far greater than the average family in Eastern Iowa can afford to pay for. But I think it's very important that we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to keep the quality or reduce the costs. And where we're at today is at a tipping point. We can either go toward Obamacare, which is going to result in a single payer system, because most health insurance companies, the system's set up so that if they make a good profit, they got to refund it to their clients, okay? So they can't make a lot of money in the good years, but in the bad years they lose money, okay? So they're going out of business monthly. Right now we can only get 2 bids in my small business for health insurance. 2. 5 years ago we could get 5 bids. Okay, so what's going to end up a single payer? United States government. Does anybody know of anything the federal government has ever done that bends the cost curve down? There's no way. If they ever do bend the cost curve down, how are they going to do it? Through rationing. And just like Sarah Palin said, through death panels. That's how they'll do it. I say, let's give capitalism, let's give economic freedom, let's give the free market a chance. We need more competition in healthcare. We need to have it be patient-centered. There needs to be incentives for someone in the system to save money. Today, the physician doesn't know what it costs, the service he's providing. The patient doesn't know what it costs because they don't really care it's a $25 deductible. No one knows what it costs. There's no incentive in our system today to save money. We need to make the patient be a consumer. And lastly, lawyers, tort reform. About $600 billion a year in unnecessary defensive medicine tests because they're afraid of being sued. We need to get it under control.
Mr. Lange.
I always like to tell the story about talking to an emergency room doctor who works here in northeastern Iowa. And he says to me, Ben, I've seen the same lady come into the emergency room 92 times. 92 times. And why does she come in? Well, because she has no skin in the game. She never has to pay for anything. And so he asked her. He said, ma'am, what if I charge you just $5 every time you come to the emergency room? And she said to him, well, Doc, I probably won't be seeing you much. And what that shows is the contrast when people have skin in the game to pay for the health care.
All right, thank you. Mr. Blum, we start with you.
Education.
It's a good thing.
I'm sure neither candidate has ever talked about education. Sarcasm, of course. Here's the specific question. From college students with loan debt to teacher unions and local school board officials, it seems everyone is always looking for some type of systemic education reform. As a member of Congress,
what would you consider one of your top priorities?
Making a difference with reform.
One of my top priorities as a member of Congress regarding education is to get the federal government out of education. Okay, if we're talking about K through 12, federal government should not be involved in K through 12. Thomas Jefferson, one of our founding fathers, said the government which governs best is closest to the people. Okay, so we need to start pushing things down from Washington, D.C. to Des Moines, Iowa. And Des Moines needs to push them from there to Cedar Rapids and Lynn County and Dubuque. Okay, we need to push it down where it's closest to the people. I can't think of a better example of that than K through 12 education. Ronald Reagan in '80 ran on abolishing the Department of Education. Okay, since then it's only grown larger and larger. I think their budget today is between $60 and $70 billion a year with a B. And what are we getting for that? Very little. They should get out of K through 12 education. Now, regarding upper education, you know, as fast as healthcare has grown, and healthcare costs have grown far greater than the cost of living, correct? As fast as healthcare has grown, higher education costs have grown 50% higher than that.